I wanted to share with you my experience of flying the Advanced Weightless after nearly 2 full seasons, nearly 2 years of flying it. We released a first impressions review of the Weightless when it first came out back in May 2022, and this is the same harness that I tested and that we've been testing all along since that, after 2 full seasons. So let's see how it's fared. This is also the same backpack that you see in that first impressions review. So let's go and have a look. And I really like this bag. This is possibly my favourite personal bag. Advanced Light Pack ULS, the 70 litre. Right, so let's flip it round. You can see, I mean, I have sometimes got it muddy, so I've cleaned it up a bit at times. I think it is worth looking after your kit on that note. So if it gets all muddy and dirty, then it's worth giving a clean with some fresh water. So I've done that. And you can see though, because of the white colour, I might not have chosen this colour personally, but you can see that despite getting a bit muddy at times, it's held up pretty well. Here's the harness in there. And well, despite lots and lots of use, and I've put all sorts of different gear in here, it's lasted really well. I mean, if you look in the seams all around, there's no seams coming apart or anything like that. I have sometimes slightly overloaded the bag, just putting heavier stuff than it was generally intended to in there, and stuffed it right up. But yeah, it's lasted really well. So literally no signs of any damage on it anywhere. To be honest, I haven't been on a sort of big adventure Volbiv across the Himalayas or something like that. Obviously something like that would put more wear and tear on it, but I do use it a lot, and as you've seen on the videos, I do walk around a lot and stuff with a backpack, so I've used that a bit, and it's a fantastic, really comfortable backpack. I do like it a lot, and a perfect complement to the Weightless. And here's the Weightless. So yeah, this is the same harness that you see in our first impressions review from nearly 2 years ago, 2 full flying seasons. And I'll be honest, I don't know exactly how much airtime I've put on this and exactly how much use, but you'll notice it featuring in an awful lot of our videos because it is one of my favourite harnesses personally, and yeah, I like it an awful lot. And so it's probably one of the harnesses I've flown most since it came out. So yeah, it's had a lot of use. With good, proper care, the Weightless can last really well, as we can see here. So well, let's get on to the details. So looking on here, I mean, I have at times again got the harness dirty and muddy and that, and I do clean it up when I do that. If you're the sort of pilot that has a lot of bum landings and gets dragged on takeoff often, you know, be honest with yourself, this is not the right gear for you. You know, the light gear is, if you drag this material across, I mean, it is actually, despite considering the weight, amazingly durable, but if you get dragged across a rough takeoff or into a barbed wire fence, or you land on your bum and skid in a lot, then you shouldn't be flying ultralight gear, in my opinion, unless you're happy that you're going to have it fixed and replaced often. So you should be flying more durable gear. But yeah, so I generally don't mess up my launches very much at all, and I don't mess up my landings very much at all. Occasionally, not always, I do prat around a bit, so I do mess about, so I do sometimes, but then again I'll tend to do that less when I'm flying with more ultralight gear like this. Let's show you around the whole harness. So here's the bottom, here's the bottom of the speed bag. You can see there it's absolutely no damage whatsoever. By the way, another mention is I fly very often with Handwag Sky boots. I did fly with Superflies, but now I fly with the Sky boots. So I very often fly with boots. I do sometimes fly with trainers as well. And I don't find that a big issue with it. And they do tend to can be a little harder to get in and out of the pod and cause a bit more wear on the pod. But again, you can see there's no issue there. Right, onto the side of the speed bag. There. That's the other side of the pod. You can see there are some slightly muddy marks all the way to here. Let's check now places we see wear on other harnesses. Stitching around the nose bag. Nope, nothing there. Let's go to the inside. We'll go turning that inside. There, again, this is areas like this we often see damage on some harnesses. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold, excuse my sniffing. I'll try not to sniff. So there, all the stitching points, all good. You can see inside, I'll turn it inside out a bit. The speed bag, yeah, so we can see here there's a little bit of, there is some wear. So I have been using it. There is some wear here, that's from the shoes and boots going up and down there, but that's pretty amazing for nearly 2 years, 2 seasons, and lots of flying and lots of use. That's very, very good. With proper care. When you're clipping in, like all ultralight pod harnesses, there is a compromise in terms of simplicity generally. They're usually a bit more fiddly and a bit easier to get wrong if you're not careful. If you're not careful, you could end up putting the waist strap through one of the pod straps or something like that. Not always a disaster. I have done that and flown with it, but not ideal. But some of the mistakes you could make could be a real problem. You need to be really careful about that. Right, so on the Weightless, you don't need the bungee 100%, but it certainly helps getting in and out. It's a good idea to do that. As I said, I'm going to keep saying, I think all pod harnesses should just come with a bungee strap included with a loop stuck in a nice place, preferably in the middle, I think, so that you can always have the choice for anybody of sticking on a bungee and sticking to that foot, at least when you're getting used to the pod, and then anyone who feels they don't need it can take it off. Now, speaking about the Weightless on the ground, well, it's not completely weightless, but it's very, very light, super comfortable. You haven't got any seat plate digging into you, so it's super comfortable on the ground, great for running around. Apart from the middle strap, it's central, the middle strap that goes up, the leg straps that go up to the waist strap, when you're ground handling, it does pinch a lot. It's very narrow to be ultra lightweight, and it goes right on your bits and does pinch. Having said this about the central strap here, which you can see is very narrow and goes down to these 2 straps here with only a minimal amount of padding. And of course this is a ultralight harness, so they're not going to add big thick straps on there to pad, because that would add weight. But I think all of the ultralight pods that I've tested do tend to pinch around your bits and have straps like this. They're not designed for lots of ground handling, one because of that reason, but also being ultralight kit, lots of ground handling would put extra wear on the kit, and so it's generally not advisable for any ultralight kit. Having said that, I think the Weightless is relatively very good compared to the others, and I've done lots of ground handling in it, and it's stood up the test of that very, very well, and including a lot of prattling around, I have to say. I can think of definitely worse examples of ground handling. One that springs to mind is the Cortel Calibri, which has got these kind of these sort of mylar, I think, inserts or something like that, stiff inserts, which go in a direction that really do cut right into your bits. And I find that actually too painful to ground handle for more than just a quick launch. Although ultralight gear is generally more fiddly to clip in, the Weightless is, relatively speaking, probably the best option there is. Relatively easy to get into the speed bag with a bungee on. It's for a ultralight pod, it's very easy. Without the bungee on, the speed bag can get blown back and be tricky to get your foot on. I've actually taken off with it quite a few times without the bungee and got in no problem. And then sometimes, just depending on how it sort of lines up, struggle to get back in. I've flown the Weightless a lot, and so has Nancy, so we got to know it really well. And we've both flown this same Weightless, put it through its paces and check on how it's lasting. And on that side, well, for us it's lasting really, really well. The harness, all of it's showing some signs of wear, but really, considering it's ultralight, just under 2 kilos, it's lasting exceptionally well. Pilots shouldn't get the wrong idea, it's an ultralight product. It's super ultralight and needs a lot more care than a standard weight product is. So you can't have it all. So you do need to take a lot more care with ultralight products, even when the build quality is as good as this. I do feel like the first impressions I had of the Weightless, the more I've flown it, I do feel that the feeling and handling is very similar to the Lightness 3, as you'd expect, because when you lose weight, you lose rigidity in the harness. I think it is a little bit more, now that I've flown it more, I think it's a bit more active, it moves around a bit more. For me, it's just kind of fine in degrees. Perhaps some pilots will find that if they're already finding the Lightness a little bit active for their liking, and then they went to the Weightless, they might find it and it's just a bit more active when it's turbulent conditions, and then they might find it a bit too active for them. But I think if a pilot's very comfortable on a Lightness 3 and likes a harness being a bit more active and weight shifty, they're going to like it. I'm really happy with it. I really like the feeling and handling of it. If you want something more stable, then I recommend looking at the Strike 2, the Supair Strike 2. That's got quite a bit more of it's more upright sitting position, and it's more of a stable feeling. Supair have made it that way on purpose. For me, the Weightless is the joint most comfortable ultralight pod harness I've ever flown in. Up until recently, it was the most comfortable, and recently I've tested the Niviak Arrow P, and that is also comfortable, and it does have a very similar design. God, I've only just noticed that in the pool position. Something I've noticed with these lightweight carabiners is exactly that. The riser getting caught on the gate of the carabiner issue. So the solution with the O-rings that I've put on the risers, I've actually done the same thing with the same carabiners, and actually different carabiners, other ultralight carabiners on other harnesses, and done that on the risers. So I should have really done that on the Weightless, but I just didn't have the issue before. But now I've just put some O-rings on there. That makes it nice and simple. Another little tip I just want to share with you is that, so I have this little flight panel which Cortel Design make, and which I can then pop on my instruments, and I suppose mostly it's useful for swapping from one harness to another. And then that also slightly expands the flight deck, like so. So it just makes it slightly bigger without being too big. So I think you can see that after 2 full seasons, nearly 2 years and lots of use, the Weightless properly used has lasted really well. And to be fair, in relatively sort of easy locations, generally launching on grassy slopes and without such strong UV, but I have used it an awful lot and have flown it in the UK and also abroad.